let's start with understanding the landscape of collegiate sports. My hope is that by now you're aware that there's different collegiate leagues. Probably the most prominent is the NCAA. This league is spread out across all the nation, and this is probably the most famous one, right? They have Division 1, Division 2, and Division 3. If you ask me, yes, I would say Division 1 is the highest level of all of them, but that does not mean that a Division 2 program level-wise might not compete head-to-head with that NCAA top 25 team. When it comes to sport like soccer, a top 25 team on the Division 1 level can compete head-to-head with a Division 2 side. So, of course, when it comes to sports, it's really hard to make this type of comparisons. What I will say is that NCAA schools are usually bigger. They have bigger budgets, bigger facilities, stuff like that. There's another couple options for you, such as the NAIA. This league includes small private colleges, again, across the nation, that probably compete at a lower level, but it's still a great opportunity to keep doing what you love the most. So NAIA has also a variety of sports. We're going to look into that here in a second, but maybe you won't get the renowned names of the universities, but you still can get a great education. Some of them have some Christian or Catholic affiliation or just religious affiliation in general. So again, they offer a different type of outlets. And the Junior College League, this is specifically made for two-year colleges, where you can probably start at junior college, play for a couple of years, gather some video, get some nice stats, and then transfer over to a four-year university. It could be NAIA or NCAA. So this is a common pathway on what we call a 2-for-2 or a 2-by-2, where you start at a junior college, play there for a couple of years, get yourself ready academically and on your sport to compete at a higher level. And usually the next step will be the NCAA. When it comes to sanctioned sports, that only means the sports that are available. On the NCAA side, we have a very robust list. Probably the most popular sports are American football, of course, basketball, soccer, track and field, swimming and diving is also popular, tennis, of course. So a lot of options, and as you can see, a lot of schools too. On the basketball side, for example, we have 351 Division 1 schools, just on Division 1. So that gives you an idea of the many options that are out there available for you. Usually, we split up these sports by season, which means we have fall sports and spring sports. An example of a fall sports could be soccer, right? And you're gonna play from August to December, probably earlier than that, November. And then you have an off season on the spring semester, where usually it's a more relaxed time for you to focus on your studies and have call scrimmages and stuff like that. But when you're on season, it's usually on the fall. And that's just an example. Some sports compete or have their season on the fall, either fall or spring. Additionally, I want you to understand how's life as a student athlete. And I found this cool graph on the internet. I cannot take the credit for this, stole it from somewhere, but it really does a great job in portraying how you can split up your time as an athlete. 30% of the time you're going to spend it on the classroom. You need to enroll for 12 credit hours per semester in order to be considered a full-time student and be allowed to compete in the collegiate leagues. 20% of the time you're going to spend it on the field, practice time. On average, you're going to spend 8 hours a week in practice. Training and weights. This is work that you have to do sometimes on your own or in small groups, but it's not really considered official practice. So you need to keep that in mind too, because you might have to wake up at 6 a.m. and hit the weights and then get out and go straight to the classroom. Competitions, you're going to spend a lot of time traveling. During that time, you can either qualify for conference finals, and if you make it to your conference and win it, you might go on to a national tournament. During that time, school keeps going, right? So you might have to take tests on the roads, tests and exams on the road, on flights, and someone will proctor those exams for you. And obviously, you still have to complete your homeworks, submit presentations, do all kinds of stuff. Really, you don't have no privilege other than professors being a little bit more flexible on dates to submit papers and stuff like that. So in summary, I would say that there's 3 components that student athletes should have: character, commitment, and consistency. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on that. Just keep it on the back of your head, that knowing that you're signing up for a full-time job. That could be a good analogy. When it comes to your chances to get into the NCAA, well, we have to be very honest here and very straightforward. If you look at the graph, your percentages, the likelihood to make it to the NCAA is not really high. In soccer, for instance, we have a less than 6% chance to make it to any NCAA team. It could be D1, D2, or D3. Your chances are quite low. Why? Because the league functions as a filter. They want to ensure you have the right academic standard, the right athletic standard, and usually you also need some sort of luck where the school you're trying to get recruited has the budget, is looking for a specific position, specific style of play. There's a lot of variables, and that's why this number gets smaller and smaller every year. When it comes to scholarship money, on the Division I side, the average amount a student athlete can earn on athletic scholarship is about $12,000. On Division II, $8,000. Division III works a little different. They do not offer athletic scholarship, but they have great academic deals, which means you might get not only a merit scholarship, but also maybe a scholarship on a specific major, like engineering scholarship on top of whatever merit scholarship you might earn. So it works a little different. And a lot of times it just comes to the word, right? You can get 80% scholarship and be part of the soccer team, for instance, but that money is not specifically assigned as athletic money. On the junior college level, the average amount is about $2,000. These are numbers per year, by the way. So having that information, it's important that you start plugging in the numbers and doing the math. And this is a cool graph that shows and breaks down the estimated cost of a private, non-profit four-year institution, such as UAW. On average, it costs about $32,000 just on tuition to attend one of these universities. And you also have to account additional costs, such as room and board, about $10,000 to $11,000. Books and supplies, another $1,000. Transportation, if you live off campus, or just by transporting yourself to or whatever. Other expenses such as insurance, your day-to-day expenses, they account for another $1,000. So when you start plugging in the numbers, you realize that yes, you can earn a decent scholarship, but oftentimes and most of the times you still have to cover a big chunk of money to be able to study in the United States. Here's how scholarships become very attractive. On average, on these institutions, you can earn up to $20,000 on academic scholarship, depending on how good of a student you are. We just reviewed the athletic scholarships amount. So if we plug in the $12,000 that people earn on average, we can see that there's still a gap, some sort of difference just to cover tuition. So be mindful of that. This is something you need to talk to your parents. You need to sit down with them and do the math and really budget for your education.